Думаю, що
Добре.
можна. Да, вже 18.
Good afternoon.
Hello. We can wait for a minute, I think, because people join us.
Nadia, our mentor, and she introduced the lecture, and I add a little.
Okay. First of all, I want to introduce myself. My name is Nadia Antonenko, and I am a senior lecturer at the Department of Informational Technologies of Architecture in the Kyiv National University of Construction and Architecture. And I work with my colleagues, Associate Professor Alexey Levchenko. He's the head of our course, BIM Technologies, and our colleague Vladislav Belov. He's our PhD student and assistant this semester. And today we have gathered here to discuss the important topic of rethinking and rehabilitating post-Soviet residential areas in Ukraine. And we are honored to welcome Professor Philipp Meuser, who has kindly agreed to come here and deliver a lecture titled Rehabilitation of Panel Buildings of Series 94, Lessons from a Pilot Project in Kryvy Rih, and to share his experience and vision regarding reconstruction. And I am also pleased to welcome our colleagues and students from our partner universities, Associate Professor Lyudmila Shvets, I don't see, but Oleg Kalmykov, Irina Trival from Kharkiv National University of Urban Economy, Beketov, Kharkiv National University, Dr. Nathan Hudson from the University of Texas at Austin, and Associate Professor Alexey Ignatyuk from Taras Shevchenko National University of Kiev. I want to very shortly tell the framework of our meeting. Our course, BIM Technologies, because of it we are today organize this lecture, aims to provide students with a hands-on experience in BIM, collaborative digital environments, and comprehension project workflow. And we work both with real cases, including the damaged buildings and territories, and we give our students to make some conceptual tasks related to rethinking and redeveloping existing housing areas and architectural projects. Thank you for hearing me, and I want to give for a short talk Lyudmila Shvets, who helped us to arrange this lecture.
Hello, everyone. Hello, dear colleagues. Hello, Philip. I want to add short information about our friendship with Philip. And Philip has been a valued member of our academic community in our university for many years. And I remember how it was before the war in 2020 years. We had the opportunity to collaborate of training course with our students, and we had the topic about African architecture, and I very well remember this. This lectures and practice works, and and Philip every time was and stay with us, and from the beginning of the Russian military aggression, he maybe first person who started to help our colleagues and our students, and every time stood with us and stay now. And he visited at Kharkiv a few times, many times, I think, and during this time, of course, and
It's our reality.
Yeah, maybe something wrong with light. There are a lot of problems with light in Kiev and other cities.
I could take over and continue talk about Africa, what I just started to talk about.
Okay, maybe our other colleagues, Nathan or Alexei, maybe you want to add something, and then we can start our lecture.
Well, good still. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's really nice to see you, and I really appreciate you taking this, agreeing to talk to us today. I've worked with Philip in various capacities as well, but I'll go ahead and hand over the floor to him for his talk. Thank you.
So I am very glad to see you, Dr. Philip. I am very glad that you joined us today. We are ready to hear your experience, and frankly speaking, here in Ukraine, we need some positive cases, some positive examples, which are encouraging and showing a way how to move on. And therefore, the topic is very interesting and promising. So let's enjoy it. And I'm happy to have you here as a guest and speaker. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for all these welcome speeches. Ludmila, you're back. I just want to follow up. You were mentioning our first contact during COVID. So I gave a series of lectures on sub-Saharan African architecture, and so the topics we were discussing in 2020. Were topics what we could also discuss today, because so when we as Westerners discuss about the heritage, or let's say the legacy of sub-Saharan Africa, colonial architecture, so very soon we talk about decolonization processes, and this is something what I also feel that this is a discussion what we also have in Ukraine nowadays. Whereas I have to add that we're not primarily talking about decolonization, but somehow there are processes where we might not have the right term nowadays. But despite this war of aggression, we also have to talk about and discuss in an intellectual level. So what is happening and how can we strengthen Ukraine? Not only by let's say reinforcing facades, or like how to improve military infrastructure or energy infrastructure, but also how we can respond in an intellectual point of view, or from an intellectual perspective, to this war of aggression, this new form of an attempt of colonization of Ukraine by the Russians. So the subject I'm talking about today, and I'm starting to share my screen. So rehabilitation of war-damaged Series 94 buildings in Kryvy Rih. So this is so I'm talking about the pilot project where we started 1.5 years ago. And it's about 2 buildings in Kryvy Rih. Both buildings are a type series 94. And both buildings have been damaged or destroyed by weapons of war. The QR code you can scan here. I will show that also in the very end, so you no need to download it now. But this is a preliminary report what we recently uploaded, so it's online available, and this shows the whole. Yeah, so we're quite deep into the let's say the results and the recommendations what we can edit, or what we edited during this 1.5 year of working in Kryvy Rih. So just some few words about me and my office. So Meuser Architects is our architect's office. I'm working with my wife Natasha Meuser for nearly 30 years already, and so during these 3 decades, so we have 3 focal points of our work, and the most let's say the biggest focus of our work is safety and security in crisis regions. So we mainly work for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So we do embassy buildings and other sensitive buildings for the international community, not only for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs from Germany, but other international organizations as well. So during the past 3 years, rehabilitation of war-damaged buildings in Ukraine has also become a quite important task in our portfolio. This is what I'm talking about today, and this is something what Ludmila already mentioned. So we do also research and consulting. I have this honorary professorship in the Beketov University in Kharkiv since 2018. So within this context, and also with other international cooperations, we try to work on this interface between theory and practice, because we strongly believe we can only do sustainable and quite useful architecture if you also have knowledge about the context and about the history and theory of architecture. So I'm talking about rehabilitation of war-damaged buildings, and so we have so please expect three parts of my lecture, and the first part is about the reconstruction of the building. And before I talk about what we are doing from point of engineering and architecture and construction, I think I have to talk about the term rehabilitation. So what I'm talking about. So in rehabilitation, is that also modernization? And I say no. So we're not talking, or I am not talking about energy modernization. I'm talking about rehabilitation. And rehabilitation means that this is a part starting from the destruction of a building and allowing the people to move back to the building and to repair the infrastructure. So we are not starting with modernization and, let's say, restoration of the building, just this short period between destruction and allowing the people to move back. And this is quite important. And what we are doing in this period is also very important, because we prepare the building to simplify or to ease the modernization at the next step. And I'm talking about this pilot project within a framework. So the framework is the international support of GIZ, the German Agency for International Cooperation. And we do that together with our local partner and engineering firm led by Oleksiy Markov in Zaporizhzhia Nastroy. And and in fact, it should also be Alexei to be here to talk about, because we always try to do it as a tandem, because this has become a very, very fruitful cooperation, and it's also, I think it's a good example for international cooperations between, in this case, a German architecture firm and an Ukrainian engineering firm. And I highly appreciate and encourage all of you, whenever you have international cooperations, try to do it. So maybe this might be also one of our first learnings today or to this evening. So the knowledge transfer. So everyone is, when we do international cooperations, everyone is talking about knowledge transfer. So the knowledge transfer is not about engineering. So we are not talking about construction methods. We are not talking about materials. We are not talking about about joints. So we are talking about the way how we can understand each other, how we manage a project, how we try to encourage all stakeholders to talk about how can we improve the communication within a project. And I think this is something I learned a lot through this project. I learned a lot about the building culture in Ukraine, whereas I have to say I knew something about, but doing such kind of project, and you have to dive deeply into the construction and planning business in Ukraine. This helped me a lot to understand much better how Ukraine works and what is the need for Ukraine, if I may say that. So what might be one of the most, what are the most important issues which needs to be solved. So anyway, so our project has another aim. So it's not only the rehabilitation of these two buildings, but it is also to edit and to publish a manual. So we are already working on a manual dedicated to the rehabilitation of war damaged buildings, and we try to combine that also with questions how a building can be modernized after it has been rehabilitated before. So there are some certain steps to follow, and we try to bring that together. So when we talk about rehabilitation, we also need to talk about destruction. And you see some examples of the destroyed buildings from the first month of the full-scale war. So these pictures have been taken in Borodyanka and Irpin. So we see buildings, different construction methods. We see a brickstone on the top right. We see a carcass, reinforced concrete carcass on the bottom left. So in the center, we see, let's say, the standard panel building. And on the right-hand side, we see the same brick building. And you see the different kinds of destruction. So the brick building has been, it has collapsed like as if it would have been powder. So the panel building, so a full section collapsed once it has been hit by many shots of artillery. And on the left-hand side, we see a frame, a carcass of a building which still stands in its let's say main shape or construction, but there was a strong fire. So we have different kinds of damages and different kinds of responding all these damages, and the difference, of course, is not only the kind of weapon, but also it very much refers also to the kind of construction itself. And I'm showing this because we are mainly always ask, how can we strengthen residential buildings against weapons of war? And my answer is, sadly to say, but it's not possible. And you know all these examples, residential buildings or civilian buildings destroyed during civil war or war. So we have examples from Grozny, Aleppo, Mariupol, all three examples destroyed by Russian military. And we have to say, or we know, that residential buildings, civilian buildings are not built to respond or to stay against weapons of war. So this is a fact. If we would strengthen our buildings against weapons of war, so they might look like this. So these are examples of containers from military infrastructure. So you can build steel constructions, mainly double-walled container buildings with special reinforced steel. But in the end, those buildings don't have windows, and in fact, they don't have any quality of living. And this is, I think, this is the big conflict what we have. On the one hand, we try to stay away from all this destruction. We try to save our lives. But on the other hand, we also we don't want to live in a bunker all the days and every time. But we want to also to celebrate public space. We want to celebrate the quality of a European city. So this is the conflict what we have. And even in times of war, it's always difficult to find an answer. And we also know these examples of collateral damage. So this is just a diagram based on one of these high rises in Kiev, which is standing close to this inner city airport. And in the first days of war, this I have to say it's an iconic building because it has been hit by a missile, and you see how this big hole was in this high riser. So and of course this is what we assume. So the target was not the high riser, but the target was the close airport, and definitely this was a collateral damage. So but we know, and so these are just some images, and you see what kind of energy is put into these buildings once there is an explosion caused by artillery, by tanks, or in this case by a missile, and still this building did not collapse due to the fact that it's a huge carcass building made out of reinforced concrete. But again, you see in this right picture, you see a column 60 up to 60 centimeters thick, and it was just deformed as if it would be plastic. So this is what we face in the moment, and again the question, how can we respond to that? And of course, always the discussion, collateral damage may depend on the location. This is correct, this thesis or this sentence, but not always. And now we come to Kryvy Rih. So this is the first pilot, or the first building what we are talking about, and it's called Ukrainska 55. So this is the Ulica Ukrainska building number 55. On the left picture, you see how a missile, shortly before it was exploding, was flying directly into the building. So we cannot say that this is a collateral damage. No, this was a direct attack, maybe randomly, but it was a direct attack to a 9-floor panel building built by, according to the series 94. And this is the first pilot project I'm talking about. So GIZ is our contractor. The city of Kryvy Rih has a cooperation with GIZ. So, and this is how the building looked like when we came into the project. So on the left-hand side, so this was just some hours after this attack. On the right-hand side, the building exactly 1 year later. So the attack was in July 23. It caused several death cases. So some people died in the building. And on the right-hand side, the building looked like a ruin even 1 year later. Not nice to see. And of course, Kryvy Rih as a building, as a location, or as a city, which has been witnessed many destructions. So up to 20% of all the buildings or the residential buildings in Kryvy Rih are damaged or destroyed. This is more than the average in Ukraine. So the average is around 13%. 20% have been damaged in Kryvy Rih so far. So now came the question, so what to do with this kind of damage? So we have a 4-section building, 9 floors. And what was interesting to understand was to have 2 double sections. So it's not 4 single sections, 2 double sections. And on the left-hand side, you see already the problem. So the double section was partly destroyed, and it was made a decision to demolish, to dismantle all the panels, and to keep one of the half sections. So that means, so the idea was to reduce 4 sections to 3 sections. And you might think this is an easy task, but I can tell you it is not. And I'm talking about construction only. So if I talk about the legal issues or the issues of ownership, I can tell you that the owners of these buildings, so they were compensated with $25,000. So they received the money, and $25,000 was an equivalent for what the people could buy another apartment in Kryvy Rih. So these figures might be different in other cities, but in Kryvy Rih in 2023 it was $25,000. So what was the task, or what was the challenge by dismantling these panels? So you see 2 double sections, and on the left-hand side this yellow strip. So this was the part 1.5 axis what we kept in the building. So we only dismantled parts of this 4th section. And this was because we had to, so this was from construction from engineering point of view, this was the idea. So we used this yellow part of the building, which was empty. We used it to stitch it like a bird's nest with steel bars. So you see that here, partly. You see the steel bars, which were welded on the corners. And then they were connected with each other, not only parallel to the wall, but also deep inside the wall, including some additional frames, steel frames. And this was done just to reinforce the remaining half section. And it has been cut by a diamond saw. So this was also new to us. So you could not just take a crane and just try to pull it out, because as we know, a panel building, so let's say the engineering or the structural system of a panel building very much depends on the welding of all these steel joints of that construction method. And so I'm not talking about design or any aesthetics. So everything was done in a very, very raw way, because the main priority was to rehabilitate the building so that the remaining or the neighboring section would be less risky to live in after we took away this remaining 4th section. So this is what was done. And you see it's a very, very rough construction, and you would not expect these kind of pictures when I tell you, so this is about a residential building, because for residential we always try to make it as nice as livable as possible. But not in this case. Priority number one was to reinforce the remaining building so that people could stay there and live there in their apartments. And so this is after 1 year. So it took quite a while. So after 1 year, on the right-hand side, you see the building after the fourth section was taken away. And from the building physics, we have another challenge, because now we have a former interior wall, which becomes the outside facade. So that means the next step, and this is something which is happening currently, the next step is to do some thermal insulation in this part of the building. And so maybe this might be interesting for you, because so what has been written into our contract, because it's a German agency for cooperation, GIZ, and so when we work with international donors or with international or with European clients, so it's not only about reconstruction and about repair, but it is also to go beyond, to think about, can we recycle debris? What to do with all these the panels which were taken away? Can we allow ourselves to have a special thermal insulation, which is not the conventional way, but can we use hemp, can we use straw, can we use some alternative material which also strengthens the decarbonization? So this has all this, everything has been discussed also in a project where we have daily attacks in a war zone. So as you know, Kryvy Rih is 70 to 80 kilometers from the contact line, but still, so and I personally, I also think it is very, very important, even if the priority number one is to rehabilitate and to save our lives, but we should also think about next steps, what comes after the war. And so I can tell you the two learnings from Kryvy Rih, because everything is about priorities, about criteria, how we deal with the questions. So if there is a question, can we recycle the debris? Of course, it would be possible, but in Kryvy Rih we have a case that they have so many empty or old shafts from all this mining, so that the responsible people, they say, okay, no problem for us, so we can use all this debris and just fill these old shafts, because we have to fill them anyway. So that might be a solution in Kryvy Rih, but maybe in other cities that we need to encourage ourselves to find another example. And when it came to alternative insulation materials, so we discussed in the beginning, why not to try to use an insulation based on straw. But then we had a next issue. So the problem was that the Ukrainian building code does not allow insulation of buildings which are straw insulation, which are higher than 2 floors. So that means, so what I can encourage you as the students, I'm talking to you as the students, never give up. At least try to think in another way. Try to think from the other side. Maybe in the end, you will find a solution which is very conventional, as you would have done it before. But at least think about. Because otherwise we cannot change something. And even it is a very, very sensitive task and a very, very risky environment where we work here, but still do not forget about other, let's say, other values. So maybe it's not, in this case, we should not only talk about construction, but also about values. And you, the young generation, you will have such a huge task, not only to restore or to rehabilitate war-damaged buildings, but to do the modernization more than 70% of the entire housing stock in Ukraine. So that means always think about how to modernize, think in another way, in an alternative way, not to be too radical, of course, because we cannot reinvent architecture every day, but at least think about alternatives. So I'm stopping here for the first pilot project. This is still ongoing, and so by the end of January, so we expect that this facade has been covered with a new facade. So then I'm coming now to the other project, Birkuna 8, which has become the main project for rehabilitation, because for this Ukrainska 55, let's say we just demolished a section, which was, looking back, quite easy task. But now I'm talking about Birkuna 8. Birkuna 8, also located in Kryvy Rih, 12 March of 2024. Air defense shot a missile, but parts of the missile crashed into the building. Also here we had five death casualties, and it caused a fire. So for many hours, this part of the building was under fire. And you see all the damages around, not only where the fire is, but also the whole facade, all the windows broke, which was quite obvious due to this blast caused by this explosion. So this is the building itself. It has so in this case it's several sections, also with this curve into the of the building, quite an unusual shape of the building. So 172 apartments, nearly 20 apartments were hit or were damaged by this huge fire. So, and when we talk about a fire which caused damages, 6 to 8 hours fire for concrete, it's just, in fact, you ask any engineer, and every engineer will tell you, so we can't give proof of the strength of reinforced concrete anymore once reinforced concrete was under fire for several hours. So, and you see how it looked like. So we had to find a solution, what to do with this with these parts of the building. So initially we had the idea so this is another picture how it looks inside. But initially we had the idea, why not to use some panels from this Ukrainska 55 building to take out there and to try to fit them, or try to use them for this building. So in fact, this was the initial idea when we selected the pilot projects. So I very much tried to find two buildings of 94 series, just to think about, can we use, let's say, old panels from another building and use in this building. I can tell you, this is the experience what we have from Kryvy Rih. Forget it, it's too complicated, and try to find another solution, because so the dismantling of a panel building and to keep existing panels, so this is what I was told by the construction companies, is 3 to 4 times more expensive, as if you would just crack all these buildings and just then you have some debris and just throw it away, or just try to recycle. But the recycling of a pure panel and to use in another panel building as a repair material. So this is the experience what we have here in Kryvy Rih, which was too complicated. It would have been too expensive. But this is an experience what we had in Kryvy Rih. Maybe we can find other examples or talk to other engineers where they did it in a more successful way. So I'm quite often people ask me, you're from Germany, you have some experience in how to recycle old concrete panels. But the examples, what I know, I can also tell you, these were just small, very, very small examples, small buildings. And it was more a pilot project or best practice project, just to show that it is possible from a construction point of view. But if you talk about financial aspects, or if you talk about logistics, it is too complicated. So that means, so once we have a demolished or destroyed panel building, so we just forgot about the idea to rehabilitate with other concrete panels. So let's go inside. So what was you see on the right hand side there is a timber construction. This was part of a first aid emergency construction to strengthen the remaining parts of the building, to not allow that this would collapse. And this wooden construction is now being replaced by steel construction. You see some steel construction. You see my cursor. So you see some steel construction which have replaced this initial timber construction. So, and what is done, also what we are doing, so in Ukrainska 55, we were stitching the remaining parts like a bird's nest. But what we do, or what we did here in Ukrainska, in Birkuna 8, is just a new, as if you would have a skeleton of a building, and inside the skeleton, we put a new steel carcass, a new steel skeleton, which is built inside the building. And this just you just see this just the method. It's not a real drawing, and this is the problem. So we have this this facade partly completely destroyed, and we don't know about the strength of the building itself, the load which can still be used for this building. So that means inside the building we had to install a new skeleton out of steel. You might see these, or you might know these kind of construction from industrial buildings, or from quite let's say post-industrial buildings which have been remodeled as a cafe or as an arts center. But here we are talking about residential buildings, standard apartments in a panel building. You see still very, very rough everything, and then partly the building was dismantled, especially in these parts where the panels were completely destroyed and where restoration or repair would not have been made any sense. And what is done? So I told you already, we did not replace the old and demolished or damaged panels by new concrete panels, but we were using a new method. So and this has been, so the remaining parts, or these new parts, have been built out of steel. So it's a steel carcass which has been put into the building itself, and then it was filled with some with standard concrete blocks. So this is a process which is still ongoing. So this is work in progress. So these pictures have been taken just a couple of weeks ago, and we expect, let's say, the final steps. We expect that also by the end of this year. By then, we would have worked more than 1.5 years to repair this part. Just to give you an idea how long it takes. So for Ukrainska 55, it was 1 year, nothing happened over there. Everyone was in a kind of shock. And then after 1 year, we came into the project. It took around 1 year to demolish the part because you have to plan it. So that's important. You have to plan it. You have to make a calculation for that. You have to make a tender. And then you have to do the works itself. And as we know, the construction business in Ukraine is not quite prosperous in the moment because so in fact the whole building economy is still under shock, and especially in these areas close to the front line. So no one is going to do new construction in the moment. So that means most of the construction companies do not work as they worked before 2022. So it's a big problem to identify experienced and skilled workers. So that's another problem, another issue what we were facing in Kryvy Rih. So what are the learnings, or what is also important to say? So when we talk about rehabilitation, we must not only talk about reconstruction of the building. So of course we are engineers and we are architects, and we think, okay, we can solve the world, we can solve any problem, but we cannot if there are still some legal issues, especially issues of ownership and funding. So, and maybe this is not so new to you, but when I talk about Ukraine for non-Ukrainians, I always have to explain that one of the biggest challenges what we are facing when we not talk about construction and architecture, but if we talk about ownership. So the biggest problem is that we have this apartment which belongs, or which is owned by the resident who lives there. But the facade itself, the roof, and also the basement mainly is owned by the municipality, and also the land belongs to the municipality. So this was the standard system of ownership until 2023. But since since 2 years, so other ownership structures are possible. So that means, so if there is an OSBB, so the OSBB can apply for receiving the ownership of the shell. That means the facade, the roof, the basement. And the OSBB can also apply for the land. So that means the individual apartment, the facade, plus the land belong to one OSBB. And this is also something what I also learned recently. It is also possible that the OSBB gets a lease contract from the municipality so that they can rent additional areas like green areas, or also parking structures or parking spaces. So that means the ownership is in the hand of the OSBB. And this is something I was just talking about, the modernization and the transformation of the housing stock in whole Ukraine. I think this is something which is very, very important if you would like to start a successful system or a successful method of modernization of all these old Soviet apartment blocks, because everything is about ownership. So this is something what I learned in my first year in university. As an architect, in Germany you learn from the first moment. So the most important issue, or the most important question in architecture or in urban development is always who owns the land. And so let's just estimate. So once all these ownership rights are handed over to the OSBBs or to the GBK. In the case of Birkuna 8, we have a GBK. So then something can change, because if you talk about international funding, if you talk about loans, so if a bank gives you a loan, so they need a security, and the guarantee never, even in Germany, the guarantee is never the building itself. The guarantee is always the land. And this is how, so when we talk about large-scale modernization of whole Ukraine, I think it is mandatory to say that we need to talk about ownership rights, and we need to talk about handing over the property of the land to OSBBs or to any other legal bodies, to allow the bank to give a loan to somebody. It might be a private person, but it might be also a legal person like OSBB or GBK. So that's one part. So and the next part is, so Ukraine has a very diverse system of funding programs to modernize multi-story apartment buildings. So there's nothing you need to invent new, because main programs already exist. Of course, you have this program of Vítnoví Dym, so for rehabilitation and modernization of the apartment itself. But there are also quite advanced programs, funding programs for energy modernization, this Energodim project, and there's also the project called Greendim for renewable energy systems. So all these, so those funding programs exist, but what is not existing, so this is according to my research or to my experience, the OSBBs or the residents itself, so they don't know in detail how it works. So that means this could be in future a completely new field of profession. So and this could be also a field of profession for engineers and for architects, not to work as a designer and as an engineer, but work as a consultant for OSBBs or for other legal bodies to consult those people and institutions how to implement a modernization process, how to install renewable energy systems on the roof, but also to consult how to finance this, and I think this is something also for the professors. Now I'm talking to the professors and to the university representatives. Try to establish some seminars or some courses, also to train architects and engineers how they could consult potential clients in doing all these modernization processes and getting the money, because all these programs, these are Ukrainian funding programs, and they are working, so they are used. But I would assume that not all OSBBs or all potential let's say the potential target group, not all of them know about what they could do. So and we also produce this kind of diagram because so whenever I try to explain how energy modernization works in Ukraine, most of the people they do not really understand the system, and here we try to on the right hand side we try to explain how it works. I have in this case I just an abstract amount of 1 million hryvnia. That's not so much, I know, but at least let's try to calculate with 1 million hryvnia. If I would take 1 million hryvnia from a bank and I try to refinance this by saved money, which I'm going to save not for paying for energy, because I have a new insulation of my facade, which cost me 100%. And if I don't get so if I take, let's say, if I take 1 million grivna from anyone, let's say, from anyone. Or I have it in my I don't know, in my treasure. So it would take 25 years once this investment has been returned. And the return of investment is not by receiving money, but the return of investment is by saving money. And I think this is important to understand how these energy funding projects or this modernization project funding programs work. So no one is willing to take a loan from the bank or invest his own money, and have, let's say, a return of investment for 25 years. So that means you need to attract the people that they would also support the energy modernization. And this works through a program like Energodim, because up to 80% of the investment is covered by a state fund, by a state program. So that means in the end, me as a resident, I only have to pay 20% of the total investment. And that means, and this shows this diagram, if I only invest 20% and then I save some money by less or by lower energy costs, so the remaining term of the loan is only 5 years. So we can reduce dramatically the term of let's say the duration of this loan, and this will attract the people to think about, can we also modernize our apartment? And then I'm talking not only about the individual modernization of one single apartment, and this is how many buildings in Ukraine look like, because it was an individual resident who decided I can make I can do some energy modernization, and then everything looks like a huge patchwork in these multi-story residential buildings. So the aim is, or the target is, we have to convince the OSBB to apply for the full ownership of the building itself and of the land. Plus, we have to convince the OSBB to apply for funding for energy modernization of the whole building. So, and it's very abstract. I know that this is very abstract what I'm talking about, but this is so important. Let's say the message is, if we talk about rehabilitation, do not think only about materials, about recyclability or whatever, decarbonization and nice facades. Also think about legal issues of ownership and the funding itself. And the third part I would like to talk about, these are social issues and participation. Because I had quite a positive experience. So when we first met this homeowners association from Біркуна 8, so everyone was very, very interested that what we are going to do there, how the process is going. And what was important for us was that we tried to be as transparent as possible, because we were just introducing ourselves, how it would work with representatives of the city of Kryvy Rih, but also the Alexei Markov, who is on the right on this picture from Nostroy, who has also experience in energy modernization in Zaporizhzhia, and some representatives of this GBK. So important to say, transparency from the early beginning, what is going to do, what you're going to do. So this is another picture from Alexei Markov, what he did. So after he learned how we did it in Kryvy Rih, so he tried to do some kind of meetings with the homeowners or the residents in Zaporizhzhia. So there was also a transfer of experience and of learnings. And what we also did, so we prepared a questionnaire. We prepared a questionnaire to the homeowners, and we asked them, what are your expectations? So is it just the repair or the rehabilitation of the facade, or do you have any other ideas? In this case, should we also increase the accessibility of the building? Should we also improve the landscaping? Do we have any other ideas? And we asked them, maybe you could give a priority And you see on the right-hand side, so this just one of these questionnaires, and people communicated with us. So from Birkuna 8, from this 170 apartments, I think we received 150 feedbacks, filled out questionnaires, and this was quite a success. And of course, this is something which also increases the trust and the let's say, and the confidence that the project could be a successful project. And based on all these experiences, what we had with the construction, but also with the ownership rights, and also with the participation, so we tried to identify four learnings or four messages, and one of these messages is to raise awareness in education, so that we said, so it is very, very important that the residents need clear information about why rehabilitation is necessary and how everyone could benefit from this rehabilitation. And of course, we also try to do some awareness campaigns and workshops to reduce skepticism and foster willingness to cooperate, because so everyone is owner of his own apartment, and you cannot expect that there is an architect from Germany and an engineer from Ukraine, and we just fly in and then we tell the people what to do, because it's just there are ownership rights, and this would be just another case of colonization. Others come and tell the residents on site what to do. So that means we have to take them by the hand. I also experienced that people are not, of course, some are skeptic, but some are afraid. So they are afraid. They don't know how it will look in the end, how would be the cost. So financial issues, I think this is a very, very important issue to discuss with the people. So that means financial literacy and transparency also for these financial issues and for the funding are very, very important, because you have to educate the people how a funding program works. I showed you this diagram with the energy cost and with the reduction of energy costs by 80% funding from a state program. So that means so you have to educate the people and to show some simple cost benefits analysis, how it would look like, because in the end the main, or let's say the decision to vote for energy modernization is, according to my experience, it's not about this abstract and philosophical question, how can we save the world and try to decarbonize our building or our energy system, because according to my experience, so the decision is made on what is the amount of money I can save. So and we have to respond. We have to answer this question, and if this is the expectations of the people, then we have to show them how they can benefit from that investment, and in fact how they can profit from that investment. And also, what is the more and more I do this, I talk about this project, I came to one more message when we talk about rehabilitation. So this. So when we talk about rehabilitation of a building, we are not talking to a single resident or to a single owner. We always talk to the association of homeowners. So that means we talk to an OSBB or we talk to a GBK, and this is the smallest unit of resilience. So everyone is talking about resilience of Ukraine, how we can improve the resilience of a whole nation. Talking with OSBBs, trying to convince them how to do rehabilitation, how to do energy modernization, in my experience, is the smallest unit. How to strengthen the the resilience of a whole nation, because you start with a building, with the OSBB of a building, you start with your neighborhood, you continue with the microrayon, and you talk with and you continue with the municipality. So during this process of Birkuna 8, so we also established, or the city of Kryvy Rih established, a steering committee. And so far we have met with the steering committee with representatives from the city, from the district, from this homeowners association, from the construction company, from GIZ as the international donor, but also with the engineers and project managers and architects involved. So we all met, and the chair, so the deputy mayor of Kryvy Rih, Yevgen Udot, he took the chair of this steering committee, and that means they consider that as quite important and serious that such kind of steering committee exists, and they also found out, or they learned, that managing such kind of steering committee would also allow to get a feedback from, let's say, from the citizens, to get a feedback from these kind of rehabilitation methods. And then, of course, they can use the information, or let's say the experience from one project, and scale up within Kryvy Rih. And our idea, let's say our task is, so the learnings from Kryvy Rih should be scaled up to whole Ukraine. And this is something we're trying to let's say, even the presentation, what I'm doing just right now with students and professors from different universities is also part, in the end, it's also part of this kind of partnership, finding partners to do networking. And so we need to talk about to get some feedback, and also to exchange ideas. And in the end, all these lessons learned should lead into a manual. I hope by, let's say, by summer next year, we have such kind of manual, and we can share with all the audience. So I'm coming to the end. So this is my one of my last slides, and maybe this might be the most important one. So it shows 4 parts or 4 steps of doing rehabilitation. So I talked about technical planning and construction, which I have to say, so looking back, I have to say the results or the methods, what we did, it's not so complicated. So I think, so I can, so this is the, let's say, the learning from these 2 pilot projects. Any engineer can solve these problems and find a solution on how to strengthen the facade and how to rehabilitate, let's say, how to strengthen the construction system of these war damaged buildings. But what is also important is talking about the legal framework. So convincing OSBBs to take over ownership by applying for the ownership rights. It's very, very important, just in long term or mid-term, to find partners, to find a bank who gives a loan. And of course, the social participation is also crucial for the success of a building. And since they all live under the same roof, they have same problems and same challenges, but you have to moderate that according to our experience. So this might be also, as I said it before, this might be a new profession for Ukraine. Some kind of facility managers or consultants for OSBBs, how to manage the OSBB, how to take them by the hand, how to apply for financial funding, but also how to communicate with other stakeholders, like representatives of the district or of the municipality. And in the very end, to talk about financial support. also to make this jungle of possible funding programs, to make it to break it down and to allow an OSBB to apply for some money. So this might be interesting for you to download. So this is a poster what we prepared for the Ukrainian Resilience Week lately. So this is a QR code to download for a English poster, and this is the same in Ukrainian, so you can also download. And this is the download for the report, for the preliminary report, which also includes the two posters I was just showing. So this is the first experience what we had from our pilot project in Kryvy Rih. And yeah, thanks for listening. And I'm ready to talk to give some answers, or if you have some comments, or other pilot projects in Ukraine where we can start an exchange, I would be very happy to learn about.
Thank you a lot, Philip, for your lecture. It was very, very impressive, warm, and sensible. And first of all, I want to ask you about our time. How many time you have for the answering the questions, that I facilitate our communication in the right way.
Yeah, we can have another 20 minutes, no problem.
20, okay. And maybe because I'm a facilitator, I want to ask from my side. Part of my family is from Donetsk Oblast, and now they're not big city, but small city, a small town. It's near the Pokrovsk, and it has been almost completely destroyed. And my part of my family was had to leave their place. And the question, I have two questions. The first question, up to you, what level of destruction does this still make a sense to talk about restoring housing, even if the people want to stay in this place? And the second, what could be or should be done with that amount of debris in Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson Oblast? What's your thoughts?
I might not be able to give you a satisfying answer, because my answer would be each project is different, and we try in our pilot project, or in the manual what we are trying to write and to edit, to not write that this is the exact way, so you have to follow this direction. But what we say is each community has to think about the criteria. The criteria when it might make sense to reconstruct and to rehabilitate the building, and when it might make sense to demolish everything and to get compensated. Of course, you can do some mathematics. You can say if 25% for Ukrainska 55, 25% were destroyed. So the decision was made, okay, we demolish 25% and we keep 75%. For Birkuna 8, so out of let's say not 12% of the apartments were damaged or destroyed. Out of the 170, around 20 were destroyed or damaged. That means it was 12%, 13%. There it was clear, we just do a repair. But if you talk about Donetsk, for example, or this area, if I have a small village with several high, let's say, multi-story buildings, and a full street, and there's one building which is completely it's not damaged, it's still working, but I have another 10 in the same street which are not working. The problem might be that the infrastructure which is still available in this small village is too big to serve one building because the others are all destroyed. So that means in this case it would make sense maybe also to demolish a building which is still working. And so my answer would be it is a very, very individual answer, because you saw that each single weapon causes different damages, depending on the kind of weapon, depending on the wind, depending on the angle, how it works, how it destroys. And that means the same applies also to the question, how can we rehabilitate or reconstruct a building? So again, my answer, try to organize the community, try to understand what are the priorities. And I can fully understand that this criteria, I was born here, I raised my children here, I don't want to leave the place, might have the same value as someone who says, oh, I'm so afraid that a new weapon will destroy our building, I will leave as soon as possible. And then you have to find, the community has to agree about certain criteria. And for that, you need a culture of discussion, a culture of organizing and managing this kind of community. And this is what I was also talking about. So it cannot be solved by an engineer. So this must be solved by social workers who know how to communicate with people. And if you talk to people in Donetsk, it might be another community as if you would talk to people in Uzhhorod. They never faced the problem of any drone or missile, but in Donetsk you have it every day, several times, and people are traumatized. So that was also another learning. So we also did an interview with a psychologist, and it was interesting to learn from her opinion, what she was saying. And she said, it might be interesting for the architects and engineers among us, because she was saying that the trauma for the people is that we all believe, we all trust that the building is our nest, which is our shelter. And once the building is destroyed, we lose the trust to the building. So, and she said, according to her experience, the biggest trauma she was facing is that the people lost the trust that the building is a shelter. And this war shows us that it is so many different levels, and there is not a single answer. So we need to understand, or we need to learn that there is not only one answer. There's a
Thank you.
comment.
Alexei, have you got a question?
Nadia, please read questions in chat for our colleagues.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, the first question, Oleg Fesenka. Do you have solutions how to retrofit structures after fire due to Tambobarike explosion of Shahed?
Yeah, this was the similar case what we have in Birkuna 8. So I can only talk about Birkuna 8. And Birkuna 8, we decided to remove those panels because otherwise, so this was the easiest solution, to remove the panels and to replace with a steel construction. And it is not only the fire; it is also the toxic elements which are in all these missiles and drones. So we have a next question here.
Okay, the next question. So how was the fragmented ownership issue solved in this pilot projects?
Okay,
Did
so
they see it temporarily?
very good question. Very good question. Yeah. So in this case, since it was a pilot project, and the priority number one was to rehabilitate, and by rehabilitation, trying to find out where are the problems. So what I was showcasing, this diagram with the different ownership rights and ownership structures. This is the result. What we observed is a big problem. So it is not solved. So for Birkuna 8 is a GBK, and as far as I know, so the funding projects from the Ukrainian state also try to encourage GBKs to transform into OSBB, and those house owner associations which are not yet an OSBB to push them to become an OSBB. So that means in these funding projects, it is also the political idea or the strategy to increase the number of OSBB. So I know, maybe it's interesting for you. So I know that in Kryvy Rih, only 20% of the buildings are organized as an OSBB, and the city of Kryvy Rih very much pushes those house owner associations or the communities to establish an OSBB, because this, what I said before, so this is the most sustainable structure, that you have a legal body, the OSBB, who owns the frame, so the facade, and who owns the land. So this is a good foundation for future, for any rehabilitation, and for also for modernization of all these buildings.
Thank you. It's Nathan. Nathan, are you here? Maybe you want to introduce
Sure.
your
I was
colleague.
just wanting to connect you, Philip, with Adam Pirek, who's a professor of architecture at University of Texas, who gave a guest lecture to our class a couple of weeks ago with Nadia, and his specialty is energy efficient design in buildings like this. He's originally from Poland, so he's a lot of experience. So I was just wanting to make that connection for future interactions. And then maybe I would add onto the question. You're looking at the percentage of damage and the model of so variables would be the percentage of damage, the weapon that's used, and the explosive characteristics, the aftermath, whether it caused a fire. What about just the absolute age of the building? Because obviously, even within the same series of buildings, you had an age range. To what extent does that factor into the decision of whether to rebuild or whether to demolish?
That's also a good question. So, I told you in the beginning, so it was important for us to identify 2 buildings of series 94. And we had the question, can we learn something if type series 94 is different from another series? So according to our experience so far, so the difference is if you have brick building, if you have panel building, or if you have a reinforced concrete carcass. So the main types are different, or the main types matter, how the building is destroyed and how you can rehabilitate. When it comes to the age of the building itself, I have to say, so we only did 2 buildings so far. So both were built mid 80s and end of 80s, so in the late Soviet period. But I know that other buildings which were, let's say, we had 5 buildings to identify in the very beginning when we started the pilot project, and there were 2 other buildings. So there was another series, 1438. So the 438 building type series is one from the first generation, and it maybe it depends not so much when the building has been built, but it depends on the type series in this case, if it is first, second, or third generation. So the series 94 is from the 3rd generation, so that means it was already in Soviet times quite advanced. But for the 438 type series, and also the block, the huge block system, and it's also first generation. So they have a problem that the load-bearing walls are facade walls, not the inside walls, the inner walls. And and that is a problem. Once the facade is damaged, to the rehabilitation causes much more energy and knowledge to rehabilitate, and then you might think about why not to demolish and compensate the people. So it has also something to do with, of course, with the construction method itself. But when it comes to the age of the building, I would estimate. I cannot give an academic proof on that, but I would estimate that it very much depends on the generation of the panel buildings, and then to say third generation is much better than first generation.
So within the generation, the specific year doesn't matter as much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have seen the hand of Ludmila. Please.
Yes, it was. So thank you. I lost my connection because we have the blackouts in Ukraine. That's why I reconnected. So thank you for your lecture, Philipp. And yes, after our training course about Africa, yes, I recognize that we more alike and difference with Africans. So, and African cities, actually. So, and my question is what is the strong the problems? One of them, maybe you can name during your work with this project. Maybe it's some problems with people, maybe with authorities of city, and maybe others. So what is more stronger?
Yeah, so what I can say is, so in the case of Kryvy Rih, we had the case that, so there was already made an agreement between GIZ and Kryvy Rih, and there was already a certain level of trust between, let's say, the city administration and GIZ as an international donor, and then we came into the project later. So we as architects and engineers, we came into the project when there was already an established connection between city administration and the international donor. And I think this helped us very much to establish communication skills with the, let's say, with the city, and also with the residents, and with anyone who took part in the project, because there was everything was under the umbrella of the cooperation between GIZ and the city administration. On the other hand, I also have to say that the first talks we had with the residents, it was interesting because we had two different meetings with them, with two different house owner associations. And the first question was, do we receive money? Is there money involved which has to be spent? Or are we going to be delivered construction material? And they all voted for, or they expected to have construction material delivered and not money paid. So that means the trust was more into getting delivered material for, let's say, quality material, and not that there might be another body, a person who will receive money and buys the money. So that means the expectation was, if we do the project, we would like to have good construction material. So the trust into, let's say, international consultants, but also international partners, to receive high quality construction materials. So this maybe this gives one answer. So this was something it was surprising for me that for both OSBBs and GBK, they both addressed this question to me. But then on the other hand, I have to say, I mean, I'm not a fan for top-down strategies when it comes to planning and architecture. But in this case, I think it was good that we had this top-down structure in Kryvy Rih. That there was a mayor and a deputy mayor who said, okay, this is the direction we go, and then everyone could follow. I think this helped also that these projects, I would say, have been implemented so far in a successful way. And on the other hand, it was important for GIZ to establish this steering committee. So this was initiated by GIZ, let's say with our German background, that we can also only do successful projects if we have a good communication with all people involved, so that everyone could address the problems and everything is very transparent. And I think the steering committee, establishing such kind of steering committee, also helped to bring this project to a success.
Thank you.
But still, I have to say we're still work in progress. Both projects are not yet fully implemented. Maybe it might be also interesting for you. So one of this, or maybe both buildings, will now have energy modernization, which will also be funded by GIZ. It's not yet 100% clear, but I can tell you, it was not so easy to convince GIZ that there is a building which has been rehabilitated, that you might take this building for the ongoing or for the follow-up project for the modern energy modernization. So don't think that there are only problems on the Ukrainian side for administration and for reorganizing the whole building stock or housing stock, but there are also issues to be solved from the international side. And maybe Nathan, you also know about. It's also a competition of international donors. So if you have World Bank, if you have UN, or if you have EIB, or if you have GIZ or US aid before, when they were still existing. So these international donors are also competing with each other. But this is, I mean, any competition is good for increasing the quality.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you a lot. I see that now it's time to finish our meeting, and I will be very glad to invite you to continue work with us. And if you're interested in our cooperation, we will invite you in our other common meetings. And Ludmila can be your mentor. You can give more information about our work this semester and the next semester. And we will be very glad of this.
Yeah, thank you. I'm also happy to share my experience, and we are preparing a first publication now. And once this is ready, I can send you a download link for online publication. But we also think about having a printed publication, so we can ship to Kiev and to Kharkiv, but also to Austin, to Texas.
For sure.
Thank
yes,
you.
definitely.
And I see Alexei, please.
Yes, I wait. I have one question, please. What classification of damage you make of use, and maybe you work with BIM models, use what programs for us important?
So
Thank you.
so then I would suggest you should scan this. Well, just show it here again. So you should scan this this QR code, what you see here, because this is the full preliminary report. And Oleksiy Markov, he wrote about the different kinds and methods on how to use BIM models also for this rehabilitation. And so you scanned it.
Mm-hmm.
And what I can say is, so since you are a class for BIM models, I mean, this is a big advantage. So I'm not so familiar if all these if all these type series are already available as a 3D model, but if not, I can only encourage you, try to start drawing and putting and let's say starting to draw all these type series as a 3D model and start to found a library where you can, let's say in international cooperation of universities, everyone could upload his 3D model of a type series, because this would help and simplify the process not only of rehabilitation but also of modernization, because this is the big advantage when it comes to modernization and thermal insulation of all these buildings, that you have 25 or 30 different type series, and 70% of all the housing stock in Ukraine is built out of these 30 type series. So this could be a good foundation for starting this modernization process, and also think about to establish some serial modernization. So that means not only the type series what was built in Soviet times, but also how to find a method, how to do modernization, let's say for type series 94. And once you have it done for one building, can you do the same method and system for another type series of 97? I think this could be a good start. But for these two pilot projects, we didn't use a BIM so far. We only have small, so the engineers, so they did some small 3D models just to show the system of reinforcing for Birkuna 8. So this skeleton what we are building there.
And you use damage classification or no?
What do you mean by damage classification? So
about uniclass, omniclass, ops. Thank you. Enough. Thank you. Yes.
So Oleksiy Markov, he wrote in our report. He wrote about
yes.
So how we could classify different kinds of damage. But he wrote that as an engineer. If you ask me as an architect, this is what I tried to answer the first question of Nadia. When is the decision made to leave a building or to rehabilitate or to reconstruct a building? For me personally, so the criteria should not only be engineering criteria, because there are also some very, very individual biographical or social aspects which also matter. And you know, but as architects and engineers, we know we can even reconstruct a building which has been damaged by 90%. If we really want to do it, we can do it. But of course, there are also some mathematics and engineering involved. And if you only follow these criteria, of course, then there's a certain point, let's say 25% left, okay, demolish everything, 25 to 50%, you might do a rehabilitation, but it's quite expensive. And if you still have more than 50% which is not damaged, you can do a repair of the building. Of course, you can classify in that mathematic method, but I hope that this is something I can communicate to you. So it's not only about engineering. So even if we have this damage by weapons of war and the reconstruction to respond to this war, but reconstruction, in my opinion, is also about social aspects, financial aspects, but also these legal aspects.
Okay, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you. And I think if anybody have question, you can write for us, and then we will send this question for Professor.
Yes. And I'm also happy to share the presentation, so I can send it to Ludmila, and then she can share within your class.
Yeah, not every student could be today, but we share your presentation, and this presentation was recorded also.
Okay.
Thank you a lot, and we hope it was only the first hour meeting, and then we will meet each other often.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to cooperate. Thank you for
invitation. Really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you again. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.